The autumn wind whipped through the financial district as I walked into Nova Technologies headquarters, my headquarters, though nobody in my family knew that. At 32, I'd built the fastest growing tech company in the country under the name James Morrison, while my family still thought I was a mid-level programmer named Daniel Barrett, barely making ends meet. My executive assistant Michael met me at the private elevator. The board meeting's been moved to 3 p.m., and the Samsung deal is ready for signatures. Also, your brother's startup, Quantum Solutions, just filed some interesting patents. I nodded, stepping into my penthouse office. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city where I'd built my empire in secret. Opening my laptop, I pulled up the latest surveillance report on my family's activities. My younger brother Thomas's startup had been making waves in the tech community, but not for the reasons everyone thought. The patents they'd filed were surprisingly similar to abandoned projects from my own company's research division. Projects that had mysteriously disappeared 3 months ago during a supposed server malfunction. Show me the access logs from the breach, I told Michael, scanning through the documents on my screen, and get me everything on James Wilson. James Wilson, my father's tech consultant and longtime family friend, he'd been spending a lot of time at Thomas's company lately, offering guidance and industry connections. What my brother didn't know was that Wilson had a history of corporate espionage, carefully hidden behind a veneer of respectability. Sir, Michael handed me a folder. Wilson accessed our servers exactly 12 hours before the malfunction. He used credentials from our Boston office. I leaned back in my chair, pieces falling into place. My parents had always favored Thomas, the good son who followed their path in business. When I'd refused to join the family's investment firm 5 years ago, choosing instead to work as a supposedly ordinary programmer, they'd written me off as a disappointment. If they only knew that their failure son had built Nova Technologies into a $4.2 billion company, with breakthrough innovations in AI and quantum computing. But I'd kept my success hidden, using my mother's maiden name, Morrison, and avoiding public appearances. The tech world knew Nova's founder as a reclusive genius who never gave interviews. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother, family dinner tonight. Thomas has big news about his company. Try to look presentable this time. I smiled grimly, remembering last month's dinner where they'd mocked my cheap clothes, not realizing my worn jeans cost more than their designer suits. I'd cultivated my image carefully, the struggling programmer who could barely afford his modest apartment, while in reality, I owned the entire building. Michael, what's the status on Project Oracle? He pulled up a holographic display showing complex data streams. Project Oracle was my company's most advanced AI system, capable of predicting market trends and detecting financial fraud with unprecedented accuracy. I'd been using it to monitor my family's business dealings. The system flagged unusual transactions between Quantum Solutions and offshore accounts, Michael reported. The pattern suggests money laundering. I finished, studying the data. They're inflating the company's value before seeking investors. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had always preached about business ethics, yet here they were helping Thomas build his company on stolen technology and fraudulent financials. A notification popped up. Wilson had just entered Nova's Boston office using his stolen credentials. I smiled. The access he'd been given was actually a honeypot, feeding him carefully crafted misinformation while tracking his every move. Sir, your father's investment firm just announced they're representing Quantum Solutions in a major funding round, Michael said, reading from his tablet. Perfect timing, I murmured. Execute Protocol Omega. Protocol Omega was a contingency plan I'd developed months ago when I first suspected my family's schemes. Now, as they prepared to defraud investors with stolen technology, everything was ready. The family dinner that evening was held at my parents' mansion in the suburbs. I parked my 10-year-old Honda among the luxury cars, maintaining my carefully crafted image. Inside, the usual scene awaited, Thomas holding court in an expensive suit, my parents beaming with pride, and various family friends nodding along to every word. Danny, Thomas called out, using the diminutive I'd always hated. Finally decided to join the successful people. I shrugged, accepting a glass of wine. Just here for Mom's cooking. Thomas was just telling us about Quantum's breakthrough, my father announced proudly. Revolutionary quantum computing algorithms. The investors are very impressed. I sipped my wine, thinking about the real source of those algorithms. Impressive indeed, reminds me of some work Nova Technologies was doing. The room tensed slightly, Wilson standing near the fireplace, almost dropped his glass. Nova, Thomas laughed nervously. They're in a different league, besides, their stuff was theoretical. We made it work. Did you? I asked mildly. I'd love to hear the technical details. Before Thomas could respond, my father cut in. Danny, not everyone wants to discuss programming minutiae. Some of us are focused on actual business. I nodded, playing my role. Of course, my mistake. The evening proceeded predictably. Thomas boasted about upcoming investor meetings. My parents made thinly veiled comments about my lack of ambition. Wilson kept shooting nervous glances at his phone, probably checking the stolen data he thought he'd acquired. After dinner, I excused myself to use the bathroom, taking a moment to check my secure phone. Project Oracle had compiled a complete analysis of Quantum's fraud. The evidence was damning: stolen technology, faked test results, and millions in laundered money. Everything okay, son? My father asked as I returned. You seem distracted. Just work stuff, I replied. A small bug in the system. He smiled condescendingly. Well, not everyone can work on world-changing technology like Thomas. If he only knew. The next morning, I arrived at Nova's headquarters earlier than usual. The board meeting wasn't until afternoon, but I had preparations to make. Michael, I called as he entered with my coffee, initiate the final phase of Protocol Omega, and get me Walter Stevens from the SEC on a secure line. Within hours, the pieces were in motion. The SEC received anonymous tips about Quantum's fraudulent activities. Nova's lawyers filed patent infringement claims, and Project Oracle began systematically unraveling the complex web of financial deception. My phone buzzed constantly with family messages. Mom, emergency family meeting tonight, non-negotiable. Thomas, need to talk AS, business opportunity. Dad, son, time to show some family loyalty. I responded to none of them, instead watching through Nova's security feeds as Wilson frantically tried to access more confidential data from our servers. Each attempt sprung another trap, documenting his corporate espionage in detail. At 2:45 p.m., Michael entered my office. Sir, they're all here, your family, Wilson, and the Quantum Solutions board. Security has them in the main conference room. I stood, straightening my custom-made suit. No more worn jeans today. And the documents, everything's ready. Project Oracle's final report, the patent documentation, and all evidence of fraud. SEC agents are standing by. Taking a deep breath, I picked up a small frame from my desk, the only personal item in my otherwise minimalist office. It held a newspaper clipping from 5 years ago. Nova Technologies revolutionizes industry under mysterious founder. The photo showed an empty chair at a press conference, the company's logo gleaming behind it. Time to fill that chair, I murmured. The elevator ride to the conference floor was silent. Through the glass walls, I could see the city I'd helped transform with Nova's innovations. My family had never understood that true success wasn't about appearances or shortcuts. It was about building something genuine, something that could change the world. Michael's voice broke into my thoughts. We're ready, sir. The conference room doors opened, and I walked in to face my family for the first time as James Morrison, founder and CEO of Nova Technologies. The look of shock on their faces was almost worth the 5 years of deception. Hello everyone, I said calmly, taking my seat at the head of the table. Let's talk about Quantum Solutions, stolen patents, and the real meaning of success. The conference room fell into stunned silence. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red, while Thomas seemed to be trying to disappear into his expensive chair. Wilson was already eyeing the exits, but my security team stood firmly by the doors. Danny, my mother finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. What is this? It's Daniel, actually, I corrected, opening my laptop, or James Morrison, as the tech world knows me, founder and CEO of Nova Technologies. But let's focus on why we're really here. With a click, the wall screens came to life, displaying Project Oracle's findings. Financial records, stolen patents, fraudulent test results, all meticulously documented and organized. These, I gestured to the screens, are records of every unauthorized access to Nova's servers, every stolen piece of intellectual property, every fraudulent transaction used to inflate Quantum's value. Thomas jumped up. This is ridiculous. You can't just sit down. I cut him off coldly. The SEC agents waiting downstairs would love to hear your explanation of these offshore accounts. He collapsed back into his chair, face pale. James Wilson, I continued, turning to the increasingly nervous consultant. Would you like to explain why you accessed our Boston servers 12 times using stolen credentials? Or shall we let the FBI Cybercrimes Unit handle that conversation? Wilson stayed silent, but his hands were shaking as he clutched his briefcase. Son, my father tried his authoritative tone. Whatever game you're playing, this isn't a game, I interrupted, pulling up more data. Project Oracle has been tracking your activities for months. The money laundering through shell companies in the Caymans, the faked test results shown to potential investors, the stolen technology you tried to pass off as Quantum's original work. Michael distributed folders containing detailed reports. My mother gasped as she saw the numbers. Millions in fraudulent transactions, all traceable back to Quantum Solutions and my father's investment firm. Why? Thomas finally asked, his voice small. Why go through all this deception? I leaned back, studying my younger brother. Because 5 years ago, when I refused to join Dad's firm, I saw how this family operates. Success at any cost, ethics as an afterthought. I wanted to build something different. So you lied to us for 5 years, my mother demanded. I created an identity where my work would be judged on its own merits. I corrected, not filtered through family connections or shortcuts. Nova Technologies succeeded because we innovate, not because we steal. The screens shifted to show Nova's legitimate achievements, breakthrough patents, technological innovations, charitable initiatives, everything built properly, ethically, successfully. The investors are coming tomorrow, Thomas said weakly. Major tech firms, venture capitalists. No, they're not, I replied. Because in about an hour, the SEC will announce a full investigation into Quantum Solutions. The patents will be revealed as stolen property. The financial fraud will be exposed. My father stood up, his face thunderous. You would destroy your own brother's company, your family's reputation. You destroyed them yourselves, I said quietly. I'm offering a chance to minimize the damage. I nodded to Michael, who distributed another set of documents. These are resignation papers, I explained. Sign them, and Quantum Solutions will be quietly absorbed into Nova Technologies. No public scandal, no criminal charges. The stolen technology returns to its rightful owner, and the investors get their money back. And if we refuse? Wilson asked, finding his voice. I smiled coldly. Then Project Oracle releases everything to the authorities. All of it. The corporate espionage, the fraud, the money laundering, your choice. The next 30 minutes were filled with tense signatures and bitter accusations. My mother cried silently. Thomas stared at the table. My father's hand shook as he signed away his involvement in Quantum. There's one more thing, I said as they finished. Father, your investment firm's licenses are being reviewed. I suggest a quiet retirement before that review concludes. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it suddenly, looking old and defeated. Security will escort you out, I stated, standing. Your personal belongings from Quantum's offices will be delivered after they've been checked for additional stolen data. As they shuffled toward the door, Thomas paused. The algorithms, they really were brilliant. I should have known they were too good to be Wilson's discoveries. They were brilliant, I agreed, because people here worked hard to develop them properly. No shortcuts. After they left, Michael cleared the screens. SEC agents are moving in at Quantum now. Project Oracle estimates a 94% recovery rate on the fraudulent investments. I nodded, walking to the window. Below, I could see my family being escorted to their cars. Their world fundamentally changed. Sir, Michael hesitated. There's a message from your grandmother. That made me smile. Grandma Barrett, the only family member who'd known the truth from the beginning. She'd been my first investor, believing in my vision of building something honest and innovative. The message was simple. Well done, grandson. Time for a proper family dinner. My house, 7 p.m. Wear whatever you want, even those expensive jeans you pretend are cheap. Looking out over the city, I thought about legacy, about doing things the right way, about the true meaning of success. Nova Technologies hadn't just disrupted industries, it had proved that innovation and ethics could coexist. Michael, I said, turning from the window, clear my evening schedule. I have a dinner to attend. My phone buzzed one last time. A news alert. Quantum Solutions under investigation. Nova Technologies emerges as industry leader in ethical innovation. Sometimes I reflected, the best revenge isn't destruction, but showing a better way forward, even if it takes 5 years and a secret identity to prove it. 2 months after the conference room revelation, I sat in my office reviewing Project Oracle's latest analysis. Quantum Solutions' dissolution had sent ripples through the tech industry, not just for the scandal but for what followed. Nova Technologies' introduction of ethically developed quantum computing breakthroughs. My phone lit up with a message from Thomas. Can we talk? Coffee maybe? It was his first direct contact since that day. He'd spent the intervening weeks cooperating with investigators, though I'd ensured he received immunity in exchange for evidence against Wilson and the other conspirators. Nova Technologies, 2 p.m., I replied. Front lobby. Michael entered with my daily briefing. Sir, the Boston office integration is complete. Former Quantum employees who passed our ethics screening have been reassigned. Also, your father's retirement announcement goes public today. I nodded, pulling up the press release. The carefully worded statement made no mention of the SEC investigation or his firm's collapsed licenses. A small mercy, bought with signed confessions and ironclad legal agreements. At 2 p.m. sharp, security cameras showed Thomas entering the lobby. Gone was the arrogant startup CEO in designer suits. He wore simple business casual attire, looking more authentic than I'd seen him in years. Nice place, he said, when I met him. Though I guess you already know that. We took the elevator to the rooftop garden, a space I'd created for employees to relax and collaborate. The autumn air was crisp, and the city spread out below us like a circuit board. How's Mom? I asked, though Project Oracle had already briefed me on the family's activities. Struggling, Thomas admitted. The charity board asked her to step down. Dad barely leaves the house. They're friends, he trailed off. Social circles can be fickle when the money and influence disappear. I observed. Like you'd know, he smiled weakly. You've been the secret billionaire all along. A moment of silence passed between us. Why did you do it? He finally asked. Not the exposure. I get that, but 5 years pretending to be the family failure. Listening to their insults, you could have proven them wrong at any time. I considered my answer carefully. Because proving them wrong wasn't the point. Building something right was. No shortcuts, no family connections, no stolen innovations. And now, Nova Technologies stands as proof that success doesn't require corruption. Every patent legitimate, every innovation earned, every employee valued for their actual contributions. Thomas looked down at his coffee. I wanted to apologize. Not just for Quantum, but for everything. The way I treated you, the things I said, you were playing the role they created for you, I said. The golden child, the chosen successor. While you were changing the world, he laughed bitterly. God, all those times I lectured you about business at family dinners. A notification popped up on my phone. Wilson had accepted a plea deal. 5 years for corporate espionage and fraud. My father's name had been kept out of it, as promised. What happens now? Thomas asked. To the family, I mean. That depends on choices, I replied. Grandma's hosting Sunday dinners again. Real ones, without pretense or power plays. You're welcome to come. He looked surprised. After everything. Family is complicated, I said, standing. But it doesn't have to be toxic. Grandma understood that. It's why she invested in Nova from the beginning. She knew, all along. I smiled. Who do you think taught me that success without ethics isn't success at all? Another notification, the market was responding to Nova's latest innovation announcement. Stock up 12%. Real value, real growth, real innovation. There's a junior developer position open in our AI division, I mentioned casually. Entry level. No special treatment. If you're interested in learning to do things the right way. Thomas stared at me. You trust me, here. Trust is earned, I replied. Just like success. The position requires coding tests, ethics screening, and starts at the bottom. But every promotion would be yours, not your name's. He stood quietly for a moment, looking out over the city. When can I start? Later that evening, I drove to Grandma's house for dinner. The modest colonial-style home had been my true north during the 5 years of deception, a place where I could be myself. Your brother called, she said as I entered. Sounded different. More like the Thomas I remember, before all the pressure and pretense. He's applying for a developer position, I told her. Helping set the table. Starting fresh. And your parents. I showed her the retirement announcement on my phone. Public story is dad stepping down to spend time with family. Private reality is consequences, she finished. Finally, we sat down to her famous pot roast. The same meal she'd served the night I'd first shared my plan to build Nova Technologies under a different name. You did good, Daniel, she said softly. Not just with the company, but with giving them a chance to learn from this. Your grandfather would be proud. My phone buzzed. A message from Michael. Project Oracle predicts 89% probability of positive market response to tomorrow's quantum encryption announcement. Also, Thomas Barrett's preliminary coding test results. Surprisingly strong fundamentals. I smiled, turning off the phone. Some things were more important than business metrics. Like family dinners with no hidden agendas. Brothers finding their real paths, and the quiet satisfaction of building something true. To new beginnings. Grandma raised her glass. And to success earned the right way. Looking around her familiar dining room, I thought about the different kinds of wealth. Financial success was one thing. But the ability to be authentic, to build something meaningful, to help others find better paths, that was the real fortune. To new beginnings, I echoed, knowing that sometimes the hardest earned victories are the ones that matter most. 1 year later, I stood at the podium during Nova Technologies' annual innovation conference. The auditorium was packed with tech industry leaders, investors, and most surprisingly, my family. Innovation isn't just about technology. I addressed the crowd. It's about integrity. About building something that improves lives without compromising principles. In the front row, Thomas sat in his Nova Technologies developer jacket, earned after completing his first year. He'd refused fast-track promotions, choosing instead to learn properly from the ground up. His first approved code contribution had brought tears to his eyes, achievement based purely on merit. Today we're announcing the Barrett Initiative. I continued, watching my parents' surprised expressions in the audience. A foundation dedicated to promoting ethical innovation and providing opportunities for young developers to build success the right way. The presentation screen showed the initiative's first project, a coding academy in underprivileged communities, teaching both technical skills and business ethics. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat, perhaps remembering his own shortcuts to success. After the announcement during the reception, my mother approached me. She'd changed over the past year, the social climber facade replaced by something more genuine. The Barrett Initiative, she said softly, using our name for something good. Names are just labels, I replied. It's actions that matter. Across the room, Thomas was excitedly explaining his current project to Grandma. His genuine passion for coding had surprised everyone, especially himself. Yesterday, his team's ethical innovation proposal had been approved for development, his first leadership opportunity, earned through hard work. Project Oracle's terminal blinked on my phone. Market response to Barrett Initiative, overwhelmingly positive. Public trust in Nova Technologies, at all-time high. My father stood alone by the windows, looking out at the city. 1 year of retirement had aged him, but also softened him. He turned as I approached. I was wrong, he said simply. About everything. Not everything, I corrected. You taught me the importance of building something lasting, just not the way you intended. He nodded, watching Thomas demonstrate coding concepts to interested students. He's happy, really happy, not just pretending anymore. Success feels different when you earn it. I agreed. Later that evening, we gathered at Grandma's house. A full family dinner. No pretenses, no power plays. My mother brought her famous lasagna. Thomas talked coding with genuine enthusiasm. And my father listened more than he spoke. A toast. Grandma announced, rising from her chair. To the Barrett legacy. Redefined and renewed. Looking around the table, I saw what real success looked like. Not in bank accounts or stolen patents, but in authentic achievements, rebuilt relationships, and principles maintained. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Michael, Sir Project Oracle Projects. Continued growth in ethical innovation sector. Also, Thomas's team just solved that quantum encryption challenge. Legitimately, I smiled, turning off the phone. Some achievements couldn't be measured by algorithms or market shares. Sometimes, success was as simple as a family dinner where everyone could finally be themselves.
Hey.
To legacy, I raised my glass, and to writing our own code for success. The autumn sun set over the city, casting long shadows through Grandma's dining room windows. In its light, I saw not the end of a story, but the beginning of a better one. One written in truth, coded in integrity, and executed with purpose. Sometimes the greatest innovations aren't in technology, but in how we choose to use it, and who we choose to become along the way. The end.